A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
On a Wednesday, we like to check in on that breaking news that we might be able to monitor coming out of Israel and more broadly across the Middle East. And interestingly, Mandy, there's been a real sort of Old Testament, New Testament thread of Jewishness and Christianity through our whole conversations today, as we've been talking about.
Which is kind of cool.
It has
really
been
good.
amazing, yes. Hey, nice to be able to get an update on what's been breaking out of Israel more broadly then across the Middle East. Let's start with Iran. The bunker-busting bombs, what's gone on beyond that? Because, the Ayatollahs claimed that they won. What are your impressions about the outcome of what's happened after, the ceasefire and potentially the end of the war?
After the preemptive strike in Iran and the absolute obliteration of the nuclear facilities, which is how President Trump likes to describe it, the Iranian regime immediately took to the airwaves to claim that they had this monumental victory over both Israel and America. And, of course, the rest of the nations of the world are all just sniggering behind their hands, knowing that it's just, it's just silliness. They cannot admit to their own defeat because you can't with that ideology, okay? That you hear this never-ending chant of Allahu Akbar all the time. God is greater. And if they were to admit that they were actually defeated, and not just defeated, but by America and Israel, well, it's unconscionable. It's just like it's inconceivable to that mindset. So, it's all bluster, really.
And of course, there's been a lot of seeds of doubt thrown into the whole mix, hasn't there?
There has.
I know they've been battling at the White House to convince the people that it was a successful attack on those nuclear facilities, and you've got those who are sowing seeds of doubt in there. There's a propaganda war that continues on. Yeah, well, because the Iranians were trying to say, we've hidden the 400 kilos of enriched uranium elsewhere. The experts are saying not a snowball's chance were they able to get that anywhere. And you can't, like I said, you can't just stick it in the back of your VW and take it and hide it under your pillow somewhere. It has to be transported carefully and stored carefully, and it didn't happen. But there have been some satellite images taken over the Fordow site, which is one of the most advanced, most dangerous nuclear sites in Iran. And it's been showing some attempts actually to maybe try to restore the site. There was some activity around the ventilation shafts and entrances, a lot of use of heavy machinery, some people visible along the ridge and whatnot spotted, but it's decimated. I think they've gone in there. Is there anything, can we pick up any, staplers off the ground or something? No, it's gone. It's gone. But interestingly, the Iranian UN representative, his name is Amir Saidi Iravani, he made a promise, and he said this, quote, uranium enrichment will never stop. So they're not giving up their aspirations at all. But also in Iran, there are some reports of ongoing small drone and other attacks. They reckon they've got their air defence activations going. I don't know whether that's true because really Israel didn't leave much behind when it came to their capacity for aerial defence, their missile production. They really kind of anything military Israel basically took out. So I don't know, but there is a lot of unrest amongst rebels and the anti-government regime sort of, there's a lot of unrest. Let's just put it that way. Iran has been postulating against Israel and the US. That's not stopping. They've still got all of their bluster and bravado. And President Trump basically, because somebody said, you're going to negotiate with them, he came out, he said, no, we're not lifting the sanctions. I'm not holding discussions. I'm not offering them anything. There's no offer on the table while they can continue to behave the way they are. Forget it. Other European nations who basically thought, that Israel had overstepped and America had overstepped, well, now they're saying, well, no, actually, you did the right thing and we're kind of distancing ourselves from Iran. They really only have a handful of friends at the moment. Iraq, because they basically control Iraq anyway since Saddam Hussein was gone. And Russia, Cuba and Pakistan and North Korea. That's really their only friends at the moment. Nobody really wants to, be BFFs with them anymore because, they're still blustering. They're still saying they'll never, ever give up their aspirations for nuclear.
There was some activity at the defence base at Nojay Air Base and the Sharoki 3rd Fighter Base in Hamadan. That's where the remainder of their F-14 Tomcats are. There's a lot of unrest, but there's a lot of Iranians. I just saw a video this morning of Iranians out in the streets in Europe where the Shah is. His car going past, they surrounded his car and they're all chanting for the Shah to come back, and they're waving their Iranian and Israeli flags together. They want him back. But the Iranian leadership have not been seen, I might add. There's lots of bluster. They're cracking down by police and security, but the leadership haven't been seen. I think the Ayatollah Khamenei is still hiding in his bunker somewhere.
Yes, and there's lots of dimensions that will be simmering along, and we'll be able to monitor those as they come to pass.
Yeah.
But the eyes of the world now are, in some sense, back on Israel and Gaza, because while one war with Iran might be tentatively over, the war with Hamas continues. So what's been happening?
Well, it's interesting because the 12-day war, that was a war within a war, because Iran was actually pulling the strings and started the whole war to start with. So yes, the focus is back on Gaza, and of course everybody's screaming, stop the fighting, stop the fighting. You know, the Israelis have actually changed their tack a little bit in dealing with, because what they do is they go in, they clear out an area, get rid of Hamas, then they destroy the infrastructure, whatnot, and then the people, they'd say, come back to your houses, we'll go on to the next bit. And Hamas would just set up base camp again. So now what they've done is they go in, they clear it out, and then they stay there to stop Hamas from coming back in, which means that Hamas is in a smaller area. Of course, what happens if you've got a rat backed into a corner? He comes out fighting. So it's very dangerous. About 7 or 8 IDF soldiers have died in the last couple of weeks. But it also means that the Hamas... Well, the rumour is that they're starting to panic somewhat. They don't have the same access to Iran anymore, and the weapons and everything being smuggled in. So they have also been... there are some aid agencies that are no longer having any connection with Hamas. They can't steal it anymore. And because of that, the people are getting the aid like they need it. But that means the Hamas are now attacking the aid. I think 12 aid workers, foreign and Palestinian, have been killed by Hamas, because Hamas wants to get their hands on the aid because they sell it at exorbitant prices and their people starve. All of that. But they are losing ground. They are, but...
Okay. So 50 hostages still remaining.
20 appear to be alive.
20 still alive. Mm-hmm. I know that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu set to be travelling to the United States.
Next week.
Possible conversations around how this thing might be brought to an end.
They will be talking about ending the Gaza war. Everybody wants the war to end. Even Israel does. But they cannot finish the war without every hostage coming home or without Hamas being destroyed. If that remains in place, even if there's one Hamas terrorist and one hostage remaining, Hamas is going to say, we beat the Israelis, and they will regroup and it'll re-inspire. They can't have that. And Bibi said from the beginning, this war will end tomorrow if Hamas puts their weapons down and they leave, and if all our hostages are returned. Anyway, we're going to have to wait and see how that pans out.
Okay, all of these groups, Hezbollah in the north, and of course the Iranian thing that's been dealt with there. Yep. The Houthis in Yemen, they somehow or other don't think that they should stop.
No, they don't. Well, because they get their marching orders from Iran. They still got a lot of ballistic missiles, and so they've been lobbing around about 5-ish ballistic missiles at Israel almost every day. And that is, of course, sending all Israelis into their bunkers. It's very disruptive, very traumatising. And Defence Minister Katz, Israel Katz, he said, Yemen's fate will be the same as Tehran's. After striking the head of the snake in Tehran, we will also strike the Houthis in Yemen. Whoever raises his hand against Israel, his hand will be cut off. Now, that is very symbolic imagery, and it's very, very significant and understood in the Middle East. As you probably know, in Sharia law in Islam, if a thief steals something, they'll cut his hand off. That's how they deal with it. So it's very symbolic, graphic imagery that if you hurt us, we are going to hurt you. So it kind of sounds offensive to a Western mindset, but hello, they don't live in the West, they live in the Middle East, and they're going to communicate in a way that their enemies understand. And so Israel is not going to tolerate this anymore. And because basically a lot of the supply line from Iran, the puppet master, is now been destroyed, they'll be focusing on not just Hamas in Gaza, but also the Houthis in Yemen, as they have been with the Hezbollah trying to re-establishing themselves in Lebanon, and it's not going well for them there either.
Okay, Iran has been disrupted, and that's causing some change to relationships with other Middle Eastern nations.
Yeah.
What about Syria in the mix here? What have you been
It's
gleaning?
a really interesting situation unfolding in Syria because, as you know, the new leader, the interim leader of Syria is Ahmed al-Sharaa. He's also known, it used to go by the name of Abu Muhammad al-Julani. Did you know, I just found out, he was actually born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. His parents are Syrian, Sunni Muslims. But he joined the al-Qaeda terror group in Iraq. He fought against the Americans. He was caught. He was imprisoned. He was released when the Syrian revolution was taking place. And he created the terror group Al-Nusra Front, which is notorious for its barbarity. And he fought alongside al-Qaeda to oust Assad's regime. But then he cut ties with al-Qaeda because he doesn't want to be seen as a radical, picking on the foreign West. Now he just wants to be considered a moderate. So he took his terrorist fatigues off and his banner off his head and stuck on a suit. And now he's a moderate and he's a statesman. Now, he also promised that as a leader he would protect the minorities in his country, which he has not done. The Alawite Muslim communities, the Druze communities and the Christian communities have been devastated by his soldiers. But he keeps saying the right things. Donald Trump just signed an executive order to lift all the sanctions from Syria. And he has a plan in mind. He wants normalization and the expansion of the Abraham Accords. Now, get this. The Iranians actually, because see, there's been no diplomatic relationship between Syria and Israel, ever. Syria doesn't even admit that it exists. However, the Syrian regime couldn't even make a phone call between Syria and Israel, and they live next door. The Syrian leadership contacted some European leaders, including Switzerland, to ask Israel if they would be up for a chit-chat. They would like to actually maybe become friends, which is, I'm kind of going, wow. I'm a little bit sus about it, considering al-Sharaa's background, but really what Donald Trump wants to do is he wants to expand the Abraham Accords, and that right now they're talking, direct talks with Israel, Syria, not just Syria but also Lebanon, believe it or not, and even Saudi Arabia. I mean, wow, watch this space, we'll see.
So there's all sorts of things happening. Yeah. You might even say there's a negotiation, there's a deal going down,
yes,
and lifting sanctions right now with Syria by the US may be part of a deal that's ready to happen. But increasingly, though, we're likely to see Syria and Israel developing new diplomatic relations here?
I can't believe that these words are even coming out of our mouth, Neil. I can't believe it. Again, I'm a bit sus about it because, you know, in my head, I kind of think once a terrorist or a terrorist. I don't know. But, I mean, look, God says that he's the one who appoints kings, he removes kings, and he has the heart of the king in his hand, and he can move it any way he wants like a river course. So, I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Okay, Israel and their economy. They've been, under siege, in battles, with war on a whole lot of different fronts.
Yep.
What are your gleanings about the economy in Israel and their economic stability?
Their economy kind of was smashed. They had a downgrading of their, whatever it is, the international, whoever they are, who's give you a grade on your economy and you're a AAA or you're a whatever. They had a downgrading of their economy because it was at the highest level. And things have turned around. One thing you learn about if you learn nothing about Israeli history other than how they defend themselves in war, and they've had so many thrown at them, she pivots, she adapts, she learns, she develops. And what she does is she then goes into, what do they say, that necessity is the mother of invention? She invents stuff to defend her people. And the whole world condemns her when she has to go to war. And then they sit back and go, now, how can we get our hands on this stuff? Because it's amazing. How did they do that? They developed Iron Dome, Arrow 3, David's Sling, so many defensive weapons to protect their people, and they're so good at it. Well, Okay, the Romanians have actually just signed a deal with Israel, a massive defence deal worth $5.6 billion. They're going to purchase 41 air defence systems, 24 Iron Dome defence batteries, 17 Spider defence batteries, all defensive stuff. Because the truth is, if you want to know how to protect and defend your civilians from foreign threats, you learn from those who do it, and Israel does it very well. So her economy is actually rebounding quite well.
Wonderful insights again today, Mandy Worby, and that encouragement. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen.
That's like a biblical command almost. I don't know whether you put it in the realm of command, but it's one of those things, if you do that, you will not only be bringing peace to Jerusalem, peace to the Middle East, it may actually be peace to the world.
Well,
there are wide ramifications.
You pray for the peace of Jerusalem, you're praying for the return of Messiah. And that's the truth. Yeah.
All right. Mandy Worby, thank you so much for another wonderful update today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.